This is Scott the Fix-It Guy. Today we have a Maytag dryer that is not heating, and we suspect that it's probably just the blown thermal fuse. So I turned it on and it's running really good, but I don't hear the gas coils firing up. I don't feel any heat. So I'm going to remove this bottom panel. There's 2 1/4-inch screws at the bottom. Pull those out. Then I'm going to grab the panel and pull it toward me from the kind of the bottom part comes out first. There we go. And then I'll stare in there while it's running to see if I see any flame or if I see the igniter glowing, but I don't see either one. So I'm going to use my voltmeter to put my probes over where the igniter wires hook up, and then I'm going to turn it on and see if I get 110 volts of power being sent to the igniter. So there's a little jack here where the igniter wires hook up, and I'm going to set my meter for AC voltage, and I'm going to put the 2 probes right in there where the wire connectors come together, and the probes fit right in there really well. And then I'll turn it on, and I should get 110 volts of AC electricity coming to the igniter. If I don't get that voltage, then I know probably it's just a thermal fuse that blew, and that usually blows. Yeah, no power going there, which is 0, 0, 0. So that's this thermal fuse here hiding behind this ducting for the filter housing. So I'm going to remove 3 1/4-inch screws, and I can get this ducting out of here. But to get into where I can get those screws, what I'll do is I'll remove some screws at the bottom of the front panel, and that allows me to get in there a little bit easier to get these 3 screws off on the filter housing. One of them is really easy to get to, and 2 of them are up high, kind of behind the front panel. So if I can get the bottom of the front panel loose, I can pull it toward me a bit, and it makes it easier to get to these 1/4-inch screws. There's one of them. I'm using a ratchet to get into that smaller area. So I'll remove these 2 screws also from the front panel. They're just Phillips head screws. That's going to allow me to pull the front panel out a little bit at the bottom, maybe 4 or 5 degrees. That gives me a couple of inches of space to work with, and I can reach up in there and remove this 1/4-inch screw here by my left hand. Once I have those out, I can then pull the filter housing out of the way, and then I have really good access to get to that thermal fuse. So I'm just using that 1/4-inch and a ratchet to get into that small area, but it's in the upper left-hand corner of this silver filter housing. So it's 3 screws holding that on. And I can pull it away, and there is a wire stop here that's still connected, so I'm going to pull that wire stop out so I can get that ducting out of the way. And now I got it unplugged. I'm using those pliers and also this little hook tool to remove the 2 power connectors, the spade connectors that go to the thermal fuse. You can use a 1/4-inch drive to remove 1 1/4-inch screw that's holding on the thermal fuse. Again, make sure you have it turned off at this point, because you can get a shock touching these wires. So I remove that screw, and then I'm going to grab the fuse and I'm going to move it to toward the right to make it let go. I'm testing it again with the continuity tester on my meter, and if there's continuity, I should get a beep and a reading. But there's no beep and no reading, so I know the thermal fuse is blown. Here's the part number for the new thermal fuse. These are actually pretty inexpensive. You can get them at Amazon Maytag.com or most parts places. I'm going to go ahead and put the new fuse in. You're going to make sure that the copper pieces are pointing up. And I'll put in the 1/4" screw to hold it in. We'll put the wires back on. Make sure they're seated there really well. And the reason it blew is this vent tube was just full of junk. So I'm using my linteater.com tool to get rid of all that clogged vent. A lot of stuff came out of there. And that's the reason the heat couldn't leave, and that's the reason the thermal fuse blew. So it's good to have this tool and use it maybe every 6 months to once a year. And that just keeps the dryer from overheating. There's a lot of stuff caught in the ducting here too for the filter housing, so I'm going to clean that up while I have it out. Also, I reached in and cleaned a lot of the lint out of the cabinet while I had it open too. So I'll put that housing back up in there. I'm going to just take my time. I'm going to pull the panel toward me a little bit. Make sure I got this housing lined up really well. Push back up in there. And then I'll add the 3 screws that hold it in. There's one in the upper right hand corner behind the front panel. So I'm pulling the panel away from me a little, or toward me a little bit to create some room. You can remove the front panel also, but there's a lot of extra steps involved, so it's okay just to pull it away from me a little bit. Putting the other 1/4" screw in the upper left hand corner, adding one other screw right here, which is easy to get to, 1/4" screw, and that's all 3 of them. Putting the filter back in. Got it. We're going to add those 2 Phillips head screws back in that were part of the front panel, that holds the front panel close to the frame. There we go. And we're putting the 2 screws in at the bottom of the front panel that help hold the front panel on. So all the screws are back in. Nice and strong. Got a new thermal fuse in there. Everything's nice and clean. So the reason the fuse blew is just normal amount of lint that builds up in the vent tube. So there we got a nice flame. Back in business. So we're just going to put it all back together. Put the bottom panel back in. We'll add the 2 1/4" screws at the bottom that hold it in. And we are done. So hope that's been helpful to you and gets your dryer going too. Thanks so much for watching, and please subscribe when you get a chance.